Hello, everybody. I hope everybody can see us. We're here in Copenhagen at the 7th Annual Conference for GRASP, Communities for Success. Hello from the other side of the world, from Brazil and the United States. We have here with us Dani Matielo, our Network Activation Leader, and Kris Herbst, our Community Director. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can see me, and if you cannot, please do give me a sign so I don't speak by myself here. Okay, am început. We'll have to wait for a couple of minutes. People are gathering in the room, so I hope you can all hear me all right. Dani, Kris, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and see your video feed right now.
Yeah, that's perfect for me too.
I will keep my camera off to make sure the connection and the sound is working smooth. Okay, so it's more important for you, Kris and Dani, to be heard and seen by the community here live. They will see me around for the next 2 days. So welcome again. I hope everybody is in the room back. We're here with in Copenhagen and on the other side of the world with Dani Matielo in Brazil and Kris Herbst in the US. So welcome the two of you, and thank you for joining our panel today. It is the last panel of the day, so a lot of communities and a lot of community talk has been presented, and we'd like to hear more about, first of all, Ashoka Changemakers. What type of communities do we have and foster? And we also have a really great news to share with communities worldwide. So without further ado, Kris, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. Good to be with you all. I was asked by Deanna to give you a quick introduction to our organization and our work. So Dani and I work for Ashoka, which is a global citizen sector organization that has been working for about 35 years to establish the field of social entrepreneurship. Our founder, Bill Drayton, coined that term 35 years ago when we got started. And the organization's, the core of its work has been to find the world's leading social entrepreneurs and to help them identify with that as a profession and to connect them into a supportive network and profession of change makers. And we're actually, this is a very good morning for Ashoka because there were two Nobel Prizes announced today, and one of them went to an Ashoka Fellow who was elected in 1993 for his work on the rights of children and rescuing children from slavery and other bad situations. And the other, who you all know, Malala, I'm sure, was, as it turns out, she started in a school in Pakistan that was founded by one of our Ashoka Fellows as well, and has taken up things that she learned in that environment. So we're feeling quite good about the visibility that social entrepreneurs are getting today via the Nobel Prize. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit specifically about the work that Dani and I and Deanna are all engaged in. Ashoka has a number of initiatives and programs, and one of them is called Changemakers. And we have a website, changemakers.com. And for about 15 years now, I'll just tell you a little bit about the evolution of the work of the website. We launched it at about the same time that we created the Ashoka.org website, which of course explains what Ashoka does. And Changemakers' website was more broadly to help explain and share stories about the field of social entrepreneurship, what that means, and to illustrate that with colorful and compelling stories about the work of social entrepreneurs on the ground. And to do one of the things that Ashoka does well, which is now that we have found the world's leading social entrepreneurs, to look at them as a group and see what are some of the the things that they have in common, the important elements of their work that make them successful, and that's sort of a pattern recognition exercise. And when we spot those principles at work, we can be assured that they're probably powerful principles that can apply more broadly and are worth calling attention to and sharing across the world. And so the early versions of the Changemakers website were kind of an online magazine that focused on these principles that emerge from the work of social entrepreneurs and sharing their stories. And as we evolved and the technology on the web evolved, we wanted to have a more interactive, engaging, and impactful site, and we experimented with a number of techniques, and one that really worked well for us was to have online competitions where we invite people from around the world to submit their ideas and their solutions and projects. We pose a problem. For example, how do you stop human trafficking? How do you empower women in the Middle East and North Africa region? And we usually work with a partner who helps to underwrite the cost of this, and we have partnered with some of the world's leading corporations as well as leading foundations. And they do it because Ashoka can help them understand how to invest in supporting social change in a way that's more thoughtful and carries a deeper impact than doing sort of traditional charity or corporate social responsibility work. And we encourage them to integrate this into their business model if they're a company, so that it really gets into the core of the value that they create and will begin to transform the culture and the workings of the company itself. That's what we shoot for if we're most successful. And similarly, for foundations, we've helped them see how they can use online technology to accelerate the process that has been a RFP, paper-driven, and not very transparent process traditionally. So over the last almost 10 years now, we have run close to 90 of these online competitions, and our sort of latest thinking and evolution is we came to see that while this was working well for us, there was a downside to the structure of the competition, which was that it was a time-bound process that began with a call for solutions, and then ended when we would screen and apply the Ashoka lens to selecting the most promising solutions for the same reasons that we select the world's leading social entrepreneur Ashoka Fellows, looking at criteria like sustainability and impact and innovation. That's when the process would end, and the weakness or downside of this was that we would sort of drop the effort at that point, having announced the winners, and move on to some other competition. And this would play out typically over a little less than a year. But we found that we were investing a lot of effort into building up a network and a community of sorts around this event, this competition, and then not continuing the effort once the competition was over. And of course, we're going for the big play to make systemic change, to tip society and sectors in places where they're ripe for a very fundamental change for the better, and that's not something that happens in less than a year's time. So now our strategy is more forward-looking to see how still using these competitions or challenges as an engine to bring people together and spark change and find great innovations. How can we set in motion a network or online community, people online and offline, who are connected, who will continue this work forward, and where they're not relying on us as the single leader and catalyst of an event, but that the network has a life of its own that will move toward broader systemic change. So I think I probably used my allotted time here to hopefully give you a sense of our work and where it's going.
Thank you so much, Kris. That's very helpful, even for me. I mean, sometimes it's very useful to remind ourselves the purpose of our work and where we're going. And a lot of what we do is curate and foster that community, and that movement that you were mentioning wouldn't be possible without a concerted effort towards mobilizing and activating those networks. And Dani, you've been leading these efforts towards activating the networks. So we hear a lot the word community and network. So can you give us a brief insight about your work, and then how do you see the differences and similarities between community and networks? How do these two fit together?
Hi, thank you, Lena. Thank you, everyone. Well, I think that what we have basically realized, as Kris had, is the power in terms of social change behind the idea of connecting people around a purpose. So I think that the idea, you know, behind communities or networks, I think they bring different ideas to, you know, the way we face this social group. But from us, what I think it's most important is to understand that the goal at the end is really bringing people to connect, and that by connecting, they are going to, one, improve the work that they are doing. So this is going to strengthen their networks, and also by collaborating with each other, that's going to advance the impact that they have in the field. So I think that these are the two elements. You could say that this is a community or a network. Kris can talk more about it, but we like to say that's a network with a purpose. And what we have realized in this process that Kris described is the importance of establishing real connections about among the entrants and the change makers that arrive in our website. A lot of people say that whenever you join a prize or a competition, there is this narrative that you're there, you can learn more, that you're going to improve the way you see your work. But we wanted to actually take a step further in that and make that happen. And what and the strategy that we have put in place to make that happen is establishing a social technical structure that allows the entrants to connect, and by inviting them to reveal each other's project, and then establishing a link that will generate this what we have been calling activating this network, that will last beyond this 1 year period that we see that we have to work with them.
That's great, Dani. Can you mention some of the tools that we use at Ashoka to strengthen the community?
Yes, so definitely, and I think that I think that what is really interesting to highlight here is I'm going to describe a tool, but actually it's less about the technical tool, and actually the strategy of understanding that to build community, you need to offer a communication grid, a structure for people to connect to each other. So it's not just about bringing them to the same space and just you know, assuming that they would, you know, immediately collaborate. So the way we did that was by embedding in our challenge system. So the way you would, you know, normally join a competition is you have an entry form, and then you're supposed to fill that out. Someone is going to evaluate, and then you're going to know the results. Usually don't even know why you won or what was your position. So what Changemakers has actually done was to make that an open process. So instead of just joining the competition, you're actually now able to, after the entry deadline, we invite people to read and reviews each other projects, and then leave comments. And in exchange, they are going to get comments on their project as well. Also, the evaluation team at Ashoka also leaves comments on the projects. So that establishes a cycle of improvement on the project, and they are going to be reevaluated after they can actually put into practice these changes. The great thing is also that whenever someone leaves a comment on your project, you can reach out to that person, and that enables us to start a conversation. And that one-on-one conversation builds an environment of trust that allows us, for example, to move forward, to invite them to be part of a collaborative space, such as a Facebook group or Google mailing list. But then without this previous step where you can actually establish trust between people, that wouldn't work.
If I can add something, I think one of the interesting things is why this came about originally. If you go back in time several years, you would see that we tried to, and we were sort of testing the idea that if we invited people to form an online community, that people would love that opportunity and love the opportunity to connect. And that actually didn't work so well for us in the sense of just people were not engaging in community just for the sake of community. And that's probably partly because innovators are very busy with their work, and partly because we have so many opportunities in other places online to have community that people didn't see the need for necessarily another one, unless there was some compelling value. And then as we began to scale up these competitions, we get many hundreds of entries sometimes. And we want to have, that's a goal, is to discover as many great innovations in the world and do as much of this work as possible. But we very quickly encountered a problem of scale, that we could not possibly, with our small staff here, be doing a great job of screening and evaluating everything that came in if we just kept building the scale higher and greater. So this idea of peer review was in part a solution, an attempt to solve the problem of scale through a sort of a kind of crowdsourcing.
That's great, and at Ashoka we do we are very proud of our offline community as well as our online community. What's your take on, like, can we have only online, or should we do only offline communities? How do these two work together? And what are the synergies that we can use to basically enhance and create a movement?
I'd love to hear Dani's response.
Yeah, okay, so I can take that. I think that it's absolutely essential to have both sides if you want to actually establish a movement. I think that the technology and the ability to be online increases our power to actually connect with people that you wouldn't have a chance, and I think that this is critical. I think that the idea that you can actually, and for us, of course, Ashoka, the engagements that we run are global, and it's really amazing to see people from India and from Africa and from Europe talking at the same ground. But in the other hand, by actually being able to meet in person really enhances your commitment and ability to share information and the flow of exchange among people. And of course, when I'm saying that you need to have offline, it doesn't mean that you have to bring everyone to the same place. You can have, for example, hubs of people that meet, or even one-on-one. I think that what is important is to balance, or to try to find ways that you combine the power of the online tools and the online gatherings with the in-person. The way we do that at Changemakers, and I think that this is also something that we should highlight, is, like Kris said, we have a small team here, so we're not able to see ourselves as the ones that are going to be doing all these meetings. So we really put a lot of importance on establishing local network partners who can support this local community. So these are partners that bring different kinds of value to the community, but they can, for example, host a local discussion, or bring some different kinds of topics for conversation. And I think that this element of distributed community is also very important if you're thinking about having a global impact.
Now, I mean, the movement is on. So we've talked about online and offline communities, and one of the things that Ashoka really does well is build on those relationships and then build on tools, technology tools and other offline tools that help those communities flourish. We have got to a point where we have the movement, where we are basically started the conversation about social change, and who's leading it, because I mean the community is growing, and we have over 200,000 users in our online community at Changemakers, and that's a huge number that obviously cannot be done through one-on-one interactions. Now, like, we've started a conversation, we've ended a competition, and we've started a movement. Who's leading?
Kris, do you want to talk, or can I take this one?
Oh, please.
I think that the great things about working with communities and networks is that you don't have to. It's not about leading. Then I think that it's about bringing people together with a purpose. As we were saying, the work is less about leading and more about facilitating and making sure that you put enough energy into that community until it reaches a point, or maybe that it continues flowing and gaining value from for being part of that community. But it's, and of course, when you're working with the community, you will see leadership emerging among the people that are in this community. And of course, because we are working in specific topics in Changemakers, we try to bring value and references, and of course, and I guess this is exactly where the Ashoka Fellows come in, which is we have this amazing community around the world who are leading social entrepreneurs, and by bringing references and inspiration with their stories to the community, we believe that that adds value to the conversations and can make sure that this is going to continue to evolve. But the great thing about also working with communities and networks is in any social group is that there's no way to tell where that's going to lead. And I think that it's important to realize that adding value and contributing and nurturing a community is probably a different approach than thinking that you're leading it.
I think also that there is there's kind of an art to establishing a network. That's something that we're working to figure out. But one of our methods that we're trying is to begin with a core group of individuals that we identify through a process we call framing, which is sort of studying the field to see who are the powerful players and the powerful ideas, and to gather them into a small community that we call a trigger community, because their work can ripple outwards and inspire and inform the work of others. And if we can successfully establish that small group, then we can build a larger network from there. So the process of identifying and putting together what could be called a trigger community is an important one.
For people who are not that familiar with Ashoka and who are coming across our organization for the first time, it may seem intimidating to hear about all these big numbers and great communities that we've built. Can you give 3 top tips for a smaller organization who's trying to build community, let's say, and organize people to vote, because we're talking about election here in Romania. We're not going to get into politics or any of that. But what would be top 3 takeaways for a smaller organization who's trying to gather community around them? Where should they start?
Well, I think that actually Kris touched in a very important tip on his last comment. I think that you have to identify your trigger community. So who are the people, who are the key people that you would want to be part of that community? Who are your champions? This core community, and if we even take a step back and look at Ashoka's history, is before there are 3,000 social entrepreneurs around the world, there were the first one, and that's how Bill Drayton actually started this amazing network. But he was, very carefully and building this triggering community from the beginning. So that would be my first tip.
That's a good one. I think that we've had some good success using Twitter for outreach and then the nice thing about Twitter is it really forces you to come up, obviously, with a very concise, short message that will fit into a tweet. So figuring out what are the words that will spark people's interest and intrigue them and give them just enough information that they want to click on a link embedded in the tweet to learn more and engage with you, and then to establish a hashtag that will allow people to coalesce around an idea that has the power to spread. So that's a very powerful tool available to any size organization.
Yeah, no, I think that this really talks about the importance of communication. I think that Twitter is a very essential part of spreading the word, and I think that the power of it is that it's open, so anyone using a hashtag can join the conversation. We have, in terms of social media, and this is not a third tip, it's just I'm just contributing to Kris' point, to doing things like hangouts, and what we do in Twitter is actually events where people connect at a certain point, and this is really powerful way of bringing other networks. So if I am participating in an event, but using Twitter, I'm actually engaging my network on that conversation. So, and I think that this is definitely a good one. And I think that the third one is investing time on putting together a communication and you know, a plan for how people can plug in and interaction. I think that one thing that is really hard when you're trying to bring people together is that if you don't have a clear way that can tell them how they can connect, they're not going to act, especially if you're thinking about engaging a big number of people around something. So what is the ask? How they can contribute? And I don't think that you have a list of like 10 ways. Just give them very concrete asks and how they can plug in, and establish what we call like an engagement letter. If they want to engage more and more, how they can contribute and become part of this core of the community.
I can throw in a bonus fourth tip, which is we've alluded to, but you can amplify the power of your ability to mobilize people by not seeing yourself as a lone leader and actor, but recruiting other organizations that have networks. And the trick there is to find a way that your agenda, your cause, is going to be something that advances another organization's or reinforces or supports what they're doing, because obviously they're not going to want to make their network available to you unless they can see a benefit to them as well. So to position yourself as a good collegial player in a space or a network of other like-minded organizations that are all working toward a common cause will amplify what your small organization can do.
Yeah, and if I can throw in a fifth one, is building is building a methodology to select your community, and that's been very successful for our fellowship community, and that set us apart from other communities, which I think it was Bill Drayton's vision to really handpick those people with the right idea, but that are also the right people aligned with our values. Because if those two do not converge, it's very difficult to build a community that believes and basically drives in the same direction. And that's what kept Ashoka going for a long while now. Okay, we also have some questions that are coming in from our audience. And one of them is, I mean, we've talked about building community and building the movement, but how do we measure it?
I think that's the question of $1 million. It's I think that there are different ways that you can look of how to measure a movement and of how to measure a community. I think that there are basic ways you can count. For example, if you're using an online platform, you can track the interactions of people, and I think that this can give you a very I would say maybe superficial, but in the sense that you cannot exactly tell what is happening if you're just measuring that. We have been investing a lot of our time to understand how we can have a more refined way to measure how the communities and the network is growing. One tool that we have been using that has been really helping us to understand the benefits that people are getting from being part of the community of the network is a tool called Network Promoter Score, which basically is that we do surveys with the participants and ask them if they would recommend these participations for other people. You probably, everyone has heard about this, but the amazing part about this very easy question, and that I would definitely recommend anyone working with, engaging people to read about it, is that allows us to really measure at different points how people are engaging with us. So this what we're really moving from just looking at the metrics, and you can have a lot of information. For example, on Twitter, there's tweet reach that can tell you how much people you reached, and on Facebook you can count participation. But Net Promoter Score gives you a more refined understanding of how people are actually feeling as being part of that community. And beyond this very easy questions, we have developed very quick surveys that we distribute among participants that allows us to have a narrative and qualitative understanding of what's actually happening on the community, and that helps us to shift our strategies and correct tracks when needed.
Cool. Another question from the audience. I feel like I'm a radio DJ now. How do you prevent dissonance between the values of the organization and the priorities of the donors?
Well, that's a great question, and one we wrestle with a lot. It's a fortunate a thing when donors' values and priorities align and match perfectly with ours, but in the real world, that doesn't happen all that often. So obviously, one is to position yourself so that you can pick and choose the ones that are most aligned, and we've come through a process of having to establish ourselves on solid ground financially, so that we have more of that ability and we're less reactive to any opportunity that comes along. And then we've learned, and I would say in many instances the hard way, that the framing process of starting to engage with a donor or an investor is critical up front, not to rush into the delivery, the process of delivering without building into that process a time to reflect and look at what the goals are and the values, and to really communicate and to try to bring our donors into our world and our view of what's effective and what's worth doing, and to negotiate around the places where there really are differences, and to be able to set limits on what we will do or can do that don't take us too far afield from those things that really aren't aligned with what we do.
Thank you, Kris. Another question is like, was there, I mean, in this process of trying to build a community and strengthen it, was there a project that failed? How did we deal with it, and what steps were taken to put it back on track? You're the veteran here. You've been with Ashoka for quite a long time, so you have a wide view about what happened, what failed, and what didn't. So
yeah, where to begin, right? There's so many use cases here. We did try to put into our web platform a groups functionality where people could form their own little sub-communities and interact with each other. And we discovered that it took a lot of curation on our part to make it work. I don't think it was apparent what the value was for people to engage in that, and so we basically got that back on track by pulling the plug on it, and sort of reevaluating what works in the realm of community. Let's see. I had a few others, but they just, as I was giving that one, they dropped out of my mind. Maybe while I'm thinking, Dani, if you have any that jump into your mind.
Well, my experience is a little bit more recent. I think that for me, when we had a very recent engagement around the idea of nutrients for all, which was for me an interesting experience, because we actually managed to get the group until a point where we thought that it could go on by itself, and I think that one of the mistakes that I have noticed is to fail to identify where what the amount of energy that you have to put until the community is actually established. I think that even within Ashoka, I have heard from different Ashoka offices that sometimes the fellow community feel like they need, you know, someone investing more and bringing more value. So I think that if you're willing to build these communities in a way that they have real impact, is to really keep an eye on what's happening and what are the flows that are going on there, and then to resource the community and the plan in a way that you can make sure that the flows are still going. And just to finish my story for Nutrients for All, I think that the elements are there, the people are there, they were engaged, and unfortunately we wouldn't have enough resources to keep that going. But you can say, I guess, like social entrepreneurs, we are just as ready for failure, which is not a bad thing. I think that all our experience have taught and brought us insights and ideas of how we can actually make it successful in the future.
One more example is we've tried in various ways to kind of create an online marketplace or space where people can describe their projects and sort of engage in a back and forth of offers and needs. And we had something that we tried for a while that we called a change shop, which was kind of this idea of giving people a place to hang out their shingle. And I think that they really didn't fly, in part because they were not well defined. It was sort of like a hope that if we set up better information, an open marketplace, that there would be sort of this clearing of supply and demand, the magic of the market would take hold. And I think what's gotten us back on track is to be more focused and to create some very clear value, but limited value propositions that give immediate sort of feedback of value, and what what Dani was describing, the peer review system, is an example of that, where we simply allow people to give constructive criticism and comments on each other's projects, and yeah, so.
Someone is asking, what are the key differentiators of our success, and how can stories like Malala's can be spread out across the world in remote areas, less accessible, and how do we reach out to those change makers? And Dani, that speaks a lot to mobilization and in the field mobilization, and that's the closing point.
So I think that one thing that both Changemakers and Ashoka have realized is, and I think that we have touched this several times, is we have to rely on the reach of our network. So the way that we work to find these stories and to reach the places where it's harder to get is, one, we Ashoka and then Changemakers has a very articulated network around the world of people who are actively searching for these changemakers. So our work is not just to be a place you know, and then have a press release saying, "Come, we exist. Please join us." We're searching for people. Building this community is our goal. Is to find Ashoka Fellows, to find these social entrepreneurs who are really changing the system and enabling other people to be change makers. This is the full-time job, and for change makers, we have people in the different continents who are also searching for innovations. But the way we search for people is not just these people individually finding the projects, but actually establishing networks in the regions of people who are in the lookout for innovations and people that can join our network. So, and I think that I can strengthen more the importance of establishing this alliances with the network and the people who are key to help bring this innovators to the network, and this is really to highlight the importance of this, we can say, like, previous homework to identify these networks and who are the people who do you want to connect with.
Yeah, I think this says something about the limits of technology as well as the magic, in that Dani's sitting in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we have found that we have to have people on the ground on the different continents. We can't do this via a web platform from North America or Europe and reach out into these areas successfully, because there is a cultural context and various ways that people are able to interact with technology that really varies. So, for example, we have an amazing network coordinator in Africa named Sobel, who will do whatever it takes. He will sit in cafes and interact with people in person, face to face, as part of our ability to engage and build a community. And he also is working, through creating a local Facebook page. So it's a blend of using technology effectively online and realizing that every culture has its own context and ways of connecting that you have to understand and engage.
Yeah, that's a really powerful note to end on. Thank you very much, Kris and Dani, for joining us. And that, I mean, the panel today is making justice to what technology can do for enabling us to come together across continents. I'm here in Copenhagen, Dani's in Brazil, Kris is in the US, and a lot of other people are actually watching online from different parts of the world. So if we were to summarize this into 3 takeaways, I think it would be what it speaks to Ashoka is build those relationships, create the tools, and work in partnership to grow that movement. And of course, put in that time and heart and soul to make it work. Thank you very much, and we'll keep you posted about how the conference is going. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great conference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.